Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our project management, project implementation training. Where we are coming from is we were originally planning to provide this training as a classroom training in Bangkok in July, so a couple of months ago, and had to cancel this training because we didn't have enough interest and enough registration for the training itself. But since then, we unfortunately had in different locations in Asia escalations from end customers about project progress, long duration, wrong implementation of the solution. So we decided now to offer this training online because it's maybe a little bit easier than flying to Bangkok or traveling to Bangkok and attending a training like this. So we are doing this now over 6 weeks, and I called it Project Thursday because it's planned to do it on every Thursday. And unfortunately, in the very first session already, I had to postpone it to today, to Friday. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm between you and your weekend now, maybe the last thing to do in the ongoing week, but let's stay focused on it. So, like I said, today Friday, because I had a meeting in Manila yesterday that I really couldn't change. So I apologize for this again, but like I said, I will send the recording around, and you can share it for sure with your colleagues too, or with resources you know who maybe is not able to join today. So what we are planning to do is giving you today an overview about our project implementation methodology and our recommendations to best practice how to implement Acumatica. And like I said before, we are then splitting this into 6 different sessions over the next 5 weeks after today. And you see here on your screen now, you should see on your screen my slides. So next week on Thursday, we will have a session about how to do a discovery in the right way, and it will be provided by our regional solution consultant Natanai, based here in Bangkok. Then on the 20th of September, so in 2 weeks, we will have a session about planning and monitoring, so more the project management part and everything around it in a project. This will be provided by me again. And we will have then on the 27th an analysis and design session that will be provided by Dang, our product engineer based out of Bangkok. And then Sergey on the 4th of October will do the build and stabilize phase overview about training, how to do proper training, how to organize a UAT in the right way, and speaking a lot about this. And Sergey is our regional solution architect based in Singapore, and I think most of you will know him. And then finally on the 11th of October, we will discuss the deploy phase and what are we doing after go live and what are the last steps before going live. And this will be presented by Napatsanan, who is also a regional solution consultant and based here out of Bangkok. For you who don't know me so much, short introduction. So my name is Thorsten. I'm responsible for Acumatica in Asia. But before I joined Acumatica, my whole life I did project management in ERP solutions. So I'm overall this year working 25 years in ERP. And like I said, my main background is actually deploying multi-country, multi-location, multi-currency ERP solutions into different countries. First in Europe and since about 13 years here in Asia. So and this is what we are planning to do in this session. So on one side, we will go with you through the same material that you might know already from our university, training university. But we, in this sessions here, we have for sure the opportunity to bring something in from our experience and giving you maybe a few examples where things really went good in our past life. But we'll give you maybe a few examples too where things didn't go well. And so we can maybe learn a little bit out of this and in our projects in the future take into account this experience that maybe I did by myself or one of my team members, as you will see it in the next sessions coming up in the future. So the purpose really of our framework is, give me a second, I have here some noise on the background. If any panelist is on and is not on mute, please go on mute now. Thank you very much. That makes it much easier to present. So again, what we are developed about 2-3 years ago in Acumatica is a Acumatica delivery framework for implementations of our solution. Some of our competitors are having very detailed and very complex implementation methodologies, and they are even forcing their partners to follow these implementation methodologies step by step. We decided not to do this. We decided to try to help you with what we are presenting here. So we developed this plan in the first step in saying these are the proper steps a project manager should follow in a project to have a high chance of making it successful. But on the other end, we are providing, you will see this in the next session too, a lot of templates that will help you with this, and a lot of material that we have around it. But on one side, we try to keep it as simple as possible, because you need to be able to understand it and to execute it, and your customers need to be able to understand it and to work with the templates that we are providing. And everything what we are presenting here, and I want to make this very clear, is a suggestion. So a lot of our partners in Asia are major partners doing ERP implementation long time too, and maybe have even their own methodologies that they used successfully in the past. And a lot of these partners are using our templates and our suggestions more to merge it with their own experience. And this is for sure totally fine with us as well. So whatever we are showing here, please take this as a suggestion from our side, where we, our global professional services team in the US, and me, myself personally, put our experience together in trying to help you and give you some advice about implementing Acumatica successful for your customers. So the agenda for today, so I want to go with you in the first step through this implementation delivery framework, means explain a little bit more what we are recommending are the steps you should go through with your customer when you implement Acumatica. We will highlight a few of the key things that we believe are very important to make the project successful. And especially there, I will come up with a few examples definitely about things I did by myself when I was younger, but I saw too where things were failing. So I saw a couple of weeks ago a Gartner report on the Gartner website, where they are stating very clear that overall ERP implementations, all products globally, about 70% of projects are not going live in time and on budget, which means only 30% from this definition are really successful. So we all know it's not easy. It's a very complex process that includes that the partner is well prepared and has a good structure in implementing it, but at the same time, for sure, requires too that the customer is involved and that the customer is helping with this. So then I want to talk a little bit about different project types we are having. Not every project is really the same. So if you implement small business edition for a 5-user professional services company, for example, it is very different to implementing it for an enterprise-sized construction company, like we, for example, signed it today in the Philippines as a new project. So we have different methodologies and different ways for this, and I want to speak a little bit about it. I will speak a little bit about terms and words we are using in our framework, and will guide you through the other sessions that you will have over the next weeks. And then we'll go through you with two main things for today. One is the elements of the Acumatica delivery framework. What are the steps to make it successful, and then speak a little bit about project roles and who are the different people and resources that are involved in a project for an implementation. So the learning objective is that you learn more today about our delivery framework that we are having here. In the end of all these 6 sessions, you can actually log into our partner portal. You can go into the project implementation training, and you should be able to pass the tests there and to become a certified Acumatica project implementation manager. So why did we develop this framework, and why are we calling it framework? So we are not calling it methodology, like I explained in the beginning, because we don't force you to really do this all step by step. We are calling it framework because we don't believe that every project is really the same. And if you work longer already in ERP2 and in Acumatica projects too, then you know this as well. Every customer is different, every industry is different. So this is why we call it a framework that can be adjusted to the requirements of the project. So how big is the project? How motivated and engaged is the customer? What's the industry we are working in, where for sure you will have to adjust your project itself. So we try to make it scalable, like I mentioned before. You should be able, using this framework in small implementations that are maybe out there, where more or less 1 or 2 people can do it alone. But you should be able to use it as well in large implementations that are maybe multi-countries, that are maybe multi-location and multi-industry focus. For example, I mentioned the project today, the new one that we got today in the Philippines. They are doing construction and manufacturing, so a very complex and large project to implement. But there too, we want our framework to work for it, and this is why we try to develop it in this way. And for sure, we want to achieve a higher level of customer satisfaction. We are talking a lot at the moment with your practice owners too in the workshops that we are having about lifetime customers. And to keep lifetime customers, the most important part is really that they are happy, and that they are happy with what you deliver, and that they are happy with the solution and everything around, for sure. So we believe that to follow a proper process in the implementation gives you a very high chance on getting a higher level of customer satisfaction. And we want to increase your productivity, which means if you can reuse templates, not only templates on paper or documents to be used, but as well maybe templates in the solution itself, and follow some of the best practices, it might make your life easier as well. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel in every project again from the very, very beginning. So what are the key points to make this project successful? So first of all, you need an experienced project manager. And I personally would like to add, it has to be a dedicated project manager. I didn't make good experience if the project manager is a consultant at the same time in the same project, what we unfortunately still see a lot here in Asia, because the responsibilities are very, very different. And at the end of the session today, or later in the session today, we will discuss these responsibilities. But as a consultant, first of all, you have to be the friend of the user, and you have to train them. You have to set up everything according how they need this to do their daily work and their job. So you have to be very, very close with them and working with them together as a very, very close team. And you have to be, and you know this better than me, you have to be involved in every small issue that is coming up later. Somebody cannot access the form because the security setup is wrong, or whatever the small issue that is coming up, you have to be in there and you have to help to solve these issues that are coming up there. As a project manager, we are expecting this person much more to step back and being the person who makes the overall project successful. Which means if issues are coming up, assign the right persons to solve it, making sure that documents are signed off that are needed during the project progress, as we will discuss this a little bit later, making sure that everybody is there when the meetings are organized, making sure in the meetings itself too that the achievement or the expectation you have to the meeting coming out of there. So it's a very, very different job And my experience is doing it by myself, being a project manager and a consultant in the past. It is very, very difficult to keep the overall overview if I have to solve every small issue by myself. So we are highly recommending to definitely split these roles into a project manager and into the consultants and technical who are working in the project. Number two is setting proper expectations. And for this, the most important thing for me in every project is really the kickoff meeting. I said before, projects are complex and projects are a lot of work, and not only for you on the partner side. Projects are very complex and hard work on the customer side too. And we need to tell them from the beginning, and they need to be aware of this, that a lot of work is coming through them. And you know this, right? If we talk about data migration, I personally think data migration is in Acumatica very easy. You just import an Excel file and the data is in the system. The real work is really in preparing the data and in the right way and having all the information available. And this is mainly on the customer side. So we need to make clear to the customer in our projects as a project manager that everybody in the customer project team is aware of the expectations we have towards them. They have to work with us on the project. They have to tell us the expectations that they have to the new solution. If they don't tell us, then we cannot provide the functionality, right? They have to help us with preparing the data that we need. They have to help us with reviewing design documentation that we are doing and giving us the feedback. So from the very beginning, we have to make very, very clear to the users, this is what we expect from you. Automatically, they have a lot of expectations to you, right? They expect you that you train them proper. They sometimes expect even that you provide user manuals in local language and that you are there all the time and help them with all the small issues. But you need to, and your project manager mainly, has to communicate in the same way. These are the expectations we have towards user who is involved in the project on the customer side. Point number 3 is communication. Very, very important point for me too. Everybody who is involved in the project on partner side and on customer side should know what's going on at all time in the project. We are recommending to do a weekly status report that is sent to everybody in the project. I will discuss this more in the session about planning and monitoring in 2 weeks. But we believe it's very, very important that everybody knows what's going on in the project. And we just had an internal meeting today about a project here in Bangkok where we are heavily involved now and put exactly this in place. So this project is more a fixing project than implementation. But we decided that on a weekly basis, we will update in detail which are the issues we fix this week, which are the other ones we are working on, and what's the progress, what's expected closing dates, and what are the ones that we maybe got new. So that really everybody on the customer side, but in our team too, knows what's going on in the project. So something very, very important during the project itself. Then proper documentation. You all know this, and if you worked in ERP projects before, and it's not only Acumatica, it's customers changing their mind, right? You get requirements, say, you implement it, you configure the system in this direction, maybe even do customizations, and later they come back and said, oh no, I need this all totally different. It's very, very important to keep yourself on the safe side, and it's responsibility on the project manager to make this happen, to document proper whatever the decisions are that are made in the project. This includes the design document. This includes, for example, meeting minutes. After every meeting, I'm sending an email out. So this is what we discussed in the meeting, and these are the decisions that we made. So everything is documented. And even if somebody on the partner side or on the customer side leaves the project, at any time, I can go back and assign a new resource, and this resource is able to catch up as much as possible on the knowledge that was gained out of the project already before. Point number 5 is resource availability. A project, and some of you might laugh now when I'm saying it here, but I saw it different. A project should always be planned until the very end on the first day. So in the kickoff meeting, I need to present the detailed project plan until project closure in all the different steps in between. Everybody needs to know I cannot go on leave when the user training is planned, for example. Everybody needs to know I cannot be off when I have to provide a requirements workshop. So the long-term planning to make sure that the resources are available that I need, it's a very, very essential part of the project. And it's often easier for you on the partner side than it is on the customer side, because they have their normal job, right? And they need to make themselves available. And my experience is when I go somewhere today and the customer complains about project delays, that it is often related to on resource availability on the customer side. So there too, both project managers, the project manager on the partner side and on the customer side, big part of their responsibility is to make the resources available to work. And it's important as much as possible to work on the risk that I'm losing information and that I might have delays in the project due to resource changes on both sides that we are having there. So these are from our perspective, the 6 major points to focus on in project. We need project managers, dedicated project managers on both sides, partner side and customer side. We need on both sides set the proper expectations. What is it that every single person who is involved in the project has to deliver to make this project successful? Communication from both sides, very, very important. And like I said, I will talk much more about this in the session in 2 weeks when we are speaking about planning and monitoring of a project as a project manager. Having proper documentation of the project in whatever we are doing, in design, in customizations, in meeting minutes, in report design, dashboard design, everything should be documented what we are doing. So it's possible to prove later. So this is what was agreed and what we want to do. Make sure as a project manager that on your side and on customer side, the resources are available so we can, with following these, especially number 4 and 5, we can reduce the risk of losing information or having huge delays because of any staff changes in the project. And especially here in Asia, I think it's even more than maybe in Europe or in the US, that people are changing jobs or moving somewhere in different roles. And then suddenly I have to catch up on this. So what can you do about it as a project manager? So first of all, it's very important setting expectations. I said before, it's an important part, right? So first of all, it's very important that you explain to your customer too that an ERP project is not an IT project. It's not implementing or installing Microsoft Office, right? Or a new cloud-based backup solution or an antivirus software or whatever. So it's a business project. What we want to implement, and again, you know it better than me, or at least same good as me, it's a software that supports the business processes, or let's call it the daily job of the user. So it's not the IT guy who can decide which way I do my invoicing in the future. It is the person who is doing the invoicing, right? So the expectation need to be there on the customer side too, and the understanding need to be there too, that this is a business project. It's not an IT project. Very, very important point to get a project set up in the right direction and executed in the right direction. So, which mainly means I personally prefer to have the warehouse manager being my project manager on customer side, to take an example, than having the IT admin there on the customer side trying to run the project. It has to be a business project. So you as a project manager should as well understand, why are they doing this? Why are they spending so much money to implement a new system? Think about yourself. If you buy a new mobile, right? And mobiles, we all want to have smartphones, so they're all not cheap. So it costs some money. So you only buy a new mobile if you really need it, right? And you have concrete requirements to this new mobile that it has to fulfill to choose it. Our customers doing the same, and it's even more money, right? Much more money. So they are deciding to buy a new ERP system, and they ask you as a project manager to implement it because they need it. So as a project manager, you need to find out why. What's their main reason of doing this? Is it, I don't know, their stock levels is always too high, so they have the feeling all my money is stuck in my inventory? Is it that my business processes are not working properly? I'm sending the wrong products all the time to customers. It can have many different reasons. Is it maybe they want to automate their field services, that they have online access to the system to get real data at any time? This, like I said, it can be many different things. You as a project manager need to understand what it is. What are they looking for? What's their main target? And this has to be your main focus in the project. If you fulfill these main requirements, I guarantee you the management of the customer will be very happy with you. And a lot of issues, small issues that are coming later up in the project are much easier to handle because there's a high level of overall customer satisfaction already. In the design document that we will talk about in one of the following sessions, we have a section in there for you to document this. And you should really do this. Go to the CEO, to the managing director, to the decision makers, and even to every department manager. This is what I did when I did projects in the past. Before even the kickoff meeting, I tried to meet every department manager and said, so what you want to get from this system? What would be your main outcome? What would make you happy if the system can deliver this later to you? Focus on it during delivery, and like I said, you have a very high chance to make the project successful. And as early as possible, involve the key people on the customer side into the project. And like I said, in, for example, asking them these kind of questions. Maybe you even can ask them to prepare a slide for the kickoff meeting that they maybe present by themselves. Maybe the manufacturing manager is fine to get up for 5 minutes in the kickoff meeting and says, so these are my expectations that I'm having to the system. You do things like this, especially in the kickoff, it will help you a lot because the users will understand why it is done. You have a better understanding why it is done, and your consultants can focus on the things that are really important in the project. And yes, I know it's very important that this report looks exactly this way and has the fields on the right place and has the right font and everything. But what's really important is to fulfill the business targets that the customer has and the real reasons why they decided to use the budget to buy a new ERP systems. And communication. Tell them all the time, and in the kickoff meeting too, this is how this project works. These are the steps we want to go through, and we will explain this on the next steps and explain them why we are doing it. So why are you doing requirements workshops in the beginning? It's really essential that you understand the business of the customer in detail. Even if you maybe implemented 10 factories before already, the customer still will have different requirements. You need to understand this, and you need always to explain them why you do it. And this is one of my personal recommendations too. Whenever you have a meeting in a project, whatever it is about, it's a kickoff meeting or steering committee or requirements workshop or training, in the beginning, you should spend a minute and tell them why you are doing it. Why are we today here together? And what should be the outcome of the meeting that we are starting now? And in the end of the meeting, you should summarize this again and say, so we came here to understand your requirements to the accounts receivable process in very detail, and this is what we discussed, and this is the outcome that we are having out of this here. And don't be, and let me say it direct, don't be lazy in some of these things and try to cut corners. Corner cutting and project management always will hit you back. That's my experience. Believe me, I did it. I tried it. I was so busy, and I try to avoid doing the weekly status report. I try to avoid things in the project. Maybe I didn't force them to sign really the design document, and I started the configuration already, or we started the development already for a specific customization, and every single time it later hit me back. So don't try to cut any corners on the project management side. So one thing I forgot actually to mention in the very beginning, as always, we have a chat window here and a Q&A window. So if you have any questions, please put them there. As you can see, I'm alone on the call today, so it's a little bit difficult to monitor it in between. But I will, in the end, we have some time, and I will review the questions, and I'm happy to answer them. So if you have any questions, click on the Q&A button on your screen, and I'm happy to answer this question. So next step, after we spoke a little bit now about the really highest priority things to make a project successful, I want to come a little bit on the different project types that we are having and that we are seeing. I mentioned before, projects have different sizes, projects are in different industries. We have different industry editions today, like the commerce edition. For example, you might implement totally different than you would do it with the standard distribution edition implementation, or maybe only financials if you have this in a project. So to separate this a little bit, we defined 3 different implementation approaches to implement Acumatica. The first one is the express implementation, which mainly focusing on a short project, quick implementation, very fixed defined scope, and no customizations, and I'm just implementing standards. So I'm sitting here today in Bangkok for a change. I'm in Thailand. So let me take an example. So if I have a customer here in Thailand, and industry doesn't matter at all, who wants just to implement financials, that's just it. So if I'm a Thai consultant, then I know the chart of accounts companies are normally using in Thailand, right? I know exactly the documents that are needed to do the tax reporting to the customer. I know typically companies like this using this structure in sub-accounts. They have departments, they have, so because I do this already a few times. So what I can do in this express implementations is I can set this up already in the very beginning and go in an approach and say, this is how our customers normally are working in financials. We can implement this in 4 weeks, or maybe even shorter or a little bit longer for you here, if you are fine with this approach and you want to do exactly the same. So you don't have to take complex requirements. You don't have to spend too much time on the documentation itself, because you can just reuse what you did before already. And there will be no big integrations and so on. It's just out-of-the-box functionality and out-of-the-box setup and configuration. So this is one option to implement Acumatica. You might have heard already before that we had twice now already practice owner workshops, and we are discussing this, for example, there a lot, how we can do this more in the future in, for example, building industry templates for Acumatica. So if I'm good in implementing in food manufacturer, for example, I'm taking my team, you as a partner, I'm taking my team, I'm setting up a food manufacturing solution, how I think out of the 5, 6, 10 projects I did in the past, this is a typical implementation. And I start my project with this initial one. So this would be a typical example where we would go with this quick implementation or express implementation, how we call it. Then we have a standard implementation, and this is what we will focus mainly on during our 6 sessions when we discuss project management, and which means you have one locations or a few locations, not so many customizations in the solution itself, maybe one add-on solution for payroll or a specific functionality, and not a very, very complex environment, but more complex that I mentioned it before for the express implementation. Like I said, mainly we'll talk about it during these 6 sessions. And then we have an advanced implementation, which are complex implementations over, for example, different countries. We had last year, 1.5 years ago, we had a project in Singapore where we were very much involved, where we implemented into 7 or 8 different countries with 10 different companies there. So there again, the approach has to be different. It is much, much more complex what you are doing there. The business processes can be much more complex. For example, coming back to the project that we got today in the Philippines, if somebody is doing construction and doing manufacturing at the same time, our expectation is this has to be an advanced implementation, because there will be very complex business processes that the solution has to fulfill. So these are the 3 different project types that we are having and that our framework supports in the end. So the key terms we will talk about during this session. So first of all, what is a project? For me personally, the main definition is the first point that you are seeing here. A project is something that has a beginning and an end. So, and this is what we are doing, for example, when we are implementing an Acumatica solution for a customer. So normally it starts a little bit before, but officially with the kickoff meeting. And the end is when maybe 1 or 2 months after go live, when you officially close the project. So it's always fixed, defined starting point of the project and a fixed, defined end point of the project itself. The end is reached normally, according to the definition of the Project Management Institute, when all the objectives, so the targets that we defined, what we discussed before, when the targets are met and the customer confirms, yes, everything what we agreed is in scope and everything what I wanted to achieve out of this project is met and everything is fine. Or when the project is terminated, then it ends as well. We hope this doesn't happen much, but unfortunately it's happening sometimes. And I'm open and honest here on the call too. It happened to every project manager. And if somebody tells you it never happened to him, then maybe he is very new as a project manager, or he's lying. So it happens. It's difficult, it's complex, and I stay to what I said in the beginning. Project management is not easy. And maybe using my ex-boss in my old life, who always was our EVP for Southeast Asia, he always told me that he never understands how I can be a project manager and how I can like to be a project manager, because nobody likes me, right? The consultants don't like me because I'm chasing them all the time, and the customer doesn't like me because I say no all the time, if they want to have additional free reports or whatever the requirements are. It is how it is as a project manager, and your responsibility as a project manager is mainly to avoid that you get this termination, right? So sometimes you have to be this way, and you have to be tough and say, no, these are the objectives. This is what we want to achieve out of the project. The request you are making now is not really needed for the objective. Let us do it in phase 2, or whatever arguments you are using to do this there. But it's your responsibility to meet the objectives. And I simplified, your job as a project manager is to get the system ready and to get the people ready on the customer side, to say it very simple, as your main targets to achieve during the project. So a project always has a process, and this is what we will discuss during this 6th session that we are organizing for you, where you have fixed processes, fixed phases you are going through one by one. And then additional responsibility as a project manager, you have to monitor the budget. You have to make sure, in the interest of your company, that you don't need 200 days for the project if the customer only pays 100, to put it in an easy way. And this is another term I'm using a lot. Customers often asking for doing something for free. To make this here very clear, free is not existing in a project. Somebody has to pay your salary, or somebody has to pay the consultant's salary or the programmer's salary. So there is no free report. If you provide something for free, your company pays for it, correct? So it's always only a discussion who is paying for it. And budget control is something very, very important. controlling your resources, making them available, as we discussed before, is very, very important. And to monitor the expected outcome. You as a project manager, if you organize the requirements workshop, your outcome is that you get the requirements of the customer documented, and you need to make sure that this happens. Like I said, you don't have to do it. And like I said, I prefer the project manager is not the same person as the consultant. So your job is to make sure it is documented, and the consultant's job is to do the documentation there in the end. And every project has subject matter experts. Your team on the partner side are the subject matter experts for the product, right? But you need subject matter experts, and you need to get this from the customer side for the different departments and for the different roles and resources and people who are later involved in working with Acumatica on a daily basis. You need these people, you need to get the information from these people, how they want to work with the solution and what they are doing there. And in the standard slides here from the US, they said in most cases, projects will involve change to an organization. My statement is, in all cases, the way they work will change. And to implement change is always very, very difficult. Don't underestimate. If you tell a user, instead of walking from the left to the right, in the future you walk from the right to the left, is for users always difficult to understand. They don't like to do it. And we all on the call here heard in the past, no, but I'm doing this 10 years and I want to continue doing it 10 years. One of the objectives very often of the management of a customer to implement an ERP solution is to change the way they work. They want to improve the way they work. They don't want to do the same again. If they want to do the same again, they can keep the old solution, right? Or still continue working on paper or in Excel or whatever. So it's always, one of the challenges is to convince the users to change the way they work at the moment. And there again, it's part of what I mentioned in the beginning, setting expectations. In every kickoff meeting, you should talk about the way you work will change, and you need to try to explain to the end users that this will happen over the duration of the project. That's the way that this will work. So how will this work? We are talking in the next step about a project lifecycle. Project lifecycle are the different phases and overall task in a project. So in our framework that we will present over the next sessions, we are splitting it on one side into different phases. So the phases we are having is a discovery phase, which is mainly focusing on understanding the requirements of the customer. This is what we will talk about a lot next week in our session, how I'm doing this, what's the best approach in doing this, how do I understand the business process, what are the detailed questions that I want to ask the customer, and we will present there as well a few templates and provide them to use it you might want to use in the future. Then the next step after discovery is to analyze these requirements in much more detail. So really sitting together with the subject matter expert of the customer, with the user, and ask them, how does your chart of accounts have to look in detail? Okay, we decided that, for example, the sub-accounts have to include the department. So what are exactly the departments you want to cover there? In another session is, for sure, we have to set up user rights by roles. So what exactly are the roles we need? What are exactly the rights these different roles should have in the system later? And who are the people who have to be assigned to the roles? So just to giving you a few examples. And exactly this, what you learn out of these analyze workshops, requirements workshops, this has to be documented and written down, because this is what you do in the build phase. You use this kind of information and set it up in the system. Purpose of the build phase mainly is setting up Acumatica according to the requirements of the customer. After the build phase, it has to be the customer Acumatica. So to be able to do it, you need to gather all this information in the beginning. In the stabilize phase, you test it. Testing doesn't mean, yeah, it does mean too, for you internally, make sure there are no bugs in the customizations that you develop. but it mainly means testing against the business processes in relation to the daily job of the end user. You need to test in the end every user, and it's not you, not your consultant. I know a lot of customers try to push this to partners. This is totally wrong. Every user who works with Acumatica has to test, can I do my job after go live? If you get this right, and Sergey will have this session, and maybe I think it's a very, very important session. If you get this testing right, that every user comes back to you and said, yes, I can print all my invoices. Yes, I can. Yes, the system is supporting my manufacturing process, how I'm doing it. Yes, I can find everything in my warehouse that I have to pick now. If you get this confirmed back from every single user before you go live, your life is so easy after go live. I bet with you today it is not, and it's very, very complicated. Giving you an example that we are experiencing here in Thailand at the moment. A project in Thailand went live without even doing a UAT at all. What happened is, after go live, no user could do his job. So really big challenge, big escalations, a lot of people very unhappy, and not unhappy, not only the customer, right? And not only the users, big frustration and a lot of hard work on the consultant side too. So again, in our session about stabilize and the deploy phase, we will talk about this a lot, how to do this in the right way, and try to catch all these problems that today maybe are coming up after go live. How can I catch this all before go live and fix it when the stress is not so high? Then we are coming to the deploy phase, where we are mainly training the people, finalizing the setup of the solution, uploading all the data migration, integrating maybe with other solution already in the production environment, and then it's the post-go-live support. So we are splitting our project in 6 phases. And if you want so, phase number 7 is the planning and monitoring, which means over the whole duration of the project, what is the job for you as a project manager to make sure that all these phases are executed successfully with a successful go live in the end of the project. So that's the official definition of project management. So, and normally I don't like to read slides, but in this case I'm doing it. So the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to manage activities to meet the project objectives. So your main job is to use the knowledge, the skills of your resources and the customer resources, tools like templates, and techniques, project methodology, to achieve the targets of the project, the objectives of the project that we discussed before. That's your main job. Again, simplifying it, getting the system ready and getting the people ready, based on the objectives, the target of the management who decided to spend $100,000 or whatever the amount is to buy a new solution, to buy a new system. So project management is all about monitoring what happens in the project. What's the progress made? What was the original plan? What do we have to do if we are not on plan anymore? Do we have to postpone go live? Do we maybe have to put more resources to speed up the process? Do we maybe taking something out, moving it into phase 2 that has to be done? So in every way, timeline, budget, a big part of your responsibility is to monitor the project, to see what's going on. And now I'm coming back to the statement that I made before. It's if you are a consultant or a technical resource and you have to design every single report that the customer wants to have, it's very hard for you to go back to this level and to step back and to see every day, to say, so where are we now? What was the original plan? Where are we today? What do we have to do to catch up? Or what do we have to do to continue working the good way that we are working there at the moment? So this is really your main job and responsibility as a project manager in every project. Processes. So today, everything is process, right? If you discuss with your customer, and taking requirements, you should always, and we will discuss this in the analysis session too, and that we are doing later. You need to understand what are the steps they are taking to print an invoice. What happened before, right? Or what are the steps they are taking before they put some goods on a truck and it's shipped out. So we always need to try to understand what are the steps, what are the processes the customer is doing to fulfill a specific task in their business. It's the same for you as a project manager. You need to understand in a project, what are the different steps, the different processes I have to execute to make this project successful in the very, very end. And maybe it's even a good example. If on the customer side, in the process from selling a good, and I had a meeting in the Philippines this week where one of the prospects I met told me one of their main problems is they are often sending the wrong goods to the wrong customer. And this is something they want to fix. And now I was lying to you because I'm confusing things. It was not in the Philippines. It was beginning of the week in Thailand. So this prospect customer told us this is a big problem they have. They get an order from a customer and somewhere on the way in the process, something goes wrong and they are shipping out the wrong product. So implementing Acumatica, and I hope you all agree with me, it's something very easy to fix. So I was very happy to hear about this requirement. But the same counts for a project. So if steps that we are defining and discussing during these 6 sessions, if we are not doing some of these steps, if we are doing some of these steps not correct or with the wrong result coming out of it, you will have exactly the same. You will not deliver wrong. Yes, you deliver a wrong product to the customer. You will not meet the expectations of the customer. If you don't test the system before it goes live, nobody knows if you deliver the right product, right? If I not look at it, how can I know it's what the customer really ordered and what they really wanted? So it's exactly the same process. It's exactly the same step. And same as on the customer side, controlling from a sales order until the delivery, is it really the correct product that I'm delivering there? It's exactly the same for you as a project manager. In every step, have in mind the targets of the management of the customer. Have in mind all the time, what is the scope of this project? What is the time? And whatever decision you make, is this a decision in the interest of the outcome to deliver the correct product to the customer later, getting it out? Very, very important. You need to think process-wise. I know for me, it's maybe a little bit easier because I'm German and we are living process, and this is everything what we do is process-oriented, and in my experience, even too much, to over-process. But you need to be this a little bit. You need to always think about, and especially to doing, and we will discuss this in planning monitoring, to try to assess risk. If a requirements workshop is not done properly, what's the risk for the project later? Your build is wrong, right? And your testing will not work out because it's not what they really need. If the testing is not done properly, what's the risk later? After go live, you could get all the issues coming up. And so try to assess this at all the time, and not only work step by step in the project, think as well all the time, am I on the right way? Are we doing this the correct way in executing these steps? And if not, what might be the outcome that I risk with this later? And communicate this with the users. Tell them in the requirement workshop, if we don't agree how you want to work in the future, we cannot deliver it to you. But you need to explain it to us. So again, setting the expectations the right way there as well. So this is, to make it a little bit more visible, this is the process that I just explained on the slide before. So we are having 6 phases plus the planning and monitoring, which goes from the discovery. Here in Asia, it often happens before the project. So this is normally what your pre-sales resource is doing. Doing a discovery with the prospect and try to understand high level, what are the requirements, what is the customer looking for. Then we're doing the more detailed analysis. We are building the solution based on the outcome of the analysis. We are testing the solution. together with the customer to make sure we really fulfill the requirements. And then we are deploying it and training the people, finalizing the configuration, and hopefully going live successfully after the project. So, project team. We discussed the project manager, so you, a lot today now already, and we will discuss much more in detail the task and everything in the next session as well. But you need more in a project. And some of you might be bored now because I told the story a few times before, but I'm happy to tell it again because it's such a great match, and maybe most of you know that I'm a big football fan and actually played by myself 14 years, but this is long time ago. I had a project kickoff long time ago here in Thailand, and the CEO of the company was the first one talking in the kickoff meeting and was explaining to his own team why they are doing it, why they are implementing the new solution, why are they spending the money, what are the objectives they want to get out of this. And in the end of his speech, he started talking about how important it is to work as a team in an organization, in his organization too, but especially too in a project like this to implement an ERP solution. And it's actually the same important in any other project too. If the project is, I want to build a new warehouse, it's very, very important too. So the point he wanted to make is, or he made, is everybody in his organization has different knowledge levels and different skills and is focusing on totally different jobs. And if I want to make my business successful or a project successful, it's important that everybody brings his background, his experience, his knowledge into the team and develops this together. So, and I liked it a lot because he was comparing it with a football game. You can buy the best 11 goalkeepers in the world and make a football team out of it, and you won't win a game, right? I know it sounds very stupid, but this is where he was coming from. You can do exactly the same with 11 forwards. You put 11 forwards in the team, you might lose every game 8-15 or something like this around. No, it's important is the constellation of the team and putting the right team members into the right positions to be successful. And actually, when we had this was actually around this time when Germany won the World Cup in Brazil, where this is an extreme good example, where Germany didn't have a real superstar in this football World Cup there. It was, and we always called it in German, it's called Die Mannschaft, which is translated into English, the team. They were called the team, and this is what achieved the success. So why I'm talking so much about it is, it's a very easy football team that we are football match that we are having here. We are not playing against anybody, right? So I extended it when I was talking to the audience there in the kickoff meeting after it. I extended this and said, important is that we all build together one team. And this is what we try to show here with this graph too. Everybody involved in the project from your team on the partner side, and everybody involved in the project on the customer side, we all together have to be one Mannschaft, have to be one team in making this project successful. And it is your job as a project manager on the partner side and the job of the project manager on the customer side to make this happen to successful together. So focus a lot on teamwork, and you know it from your team, right? Your programmer normally cannot set up a chart of accounts, right? Maybe he can, but it's not his job, right? So you two in your team already depend on everybody in your team is doing his job in the right way in working together with other ones. Maybe the other way around, the example is better to say, if you ask your finance consultant to customize the warehouse management module, they can't do it. And it's not their job, and they shouldn't do it. The technical who can do this can't do it alone either, right? So he needs a finance consultant or the the business consultant to tell him what are the requirements and how this has worked. So they have to work as a team together. But, and this is my point I want to make, this is not enough. The user, the stakeholder, the subject matter expert on the customer side has to be part of this team as well, because he knows exactly how they want to work. So these 3 resources for this small task to customize the warehouse management functionality, whatever it is, these 3 people have to be one team. The subject matter expert customer, the business consultant on your side, and the technical consultant who will execute this later. And then again back to the end user later who is testing it and comes back and said, yep, this is exactly what I wanted to have. And this is how the whole project has to be set up. So going a little bit through these roles that we are having there and where we think the main part of it. First of all, every project has to have a project sponsor on both sides. The project sponsor is the main decision maker on the customer side and on your side. So this is a person as a project manager you can go to if the decision you have to make related to an issue or related to something is coming up is over your decision power and you just can't decide it anymore. So this is the person who in the end makes the overall final decisions. Try to get on the customer side this person as high as possible. Try to get on your side this person as high as possible. These resources, the project sponsors on both sides, should attend a monthly steering committee meeting. I will discuss this a lot more too in the session about planning and monitoring. This is a session that should happen every month in the project with the management where they get updated. This is the status, this is the progress we made. And guys, this is where we need your help to make decisions and to help us to progress in the project. For example, there's a new requirement coming up. This was not included originally in the scope of work. Only the sponsor, only the owner of the project can decide, do we want to add this to the project or are we doing it later, or no, we don't need this, we take it out. So the project sponsor is the overall responsible person on both sides, on partner and on customer side. So then it's you, the project manager. So what's your job? So you have overall to provide the project direction. You have to plan the project overall, again, together with the customer project manager, and execute this project and what you have to do there. So you have to manage the delivery of the different tasks in the project. Like I mentioned before, you have to monitor, did we do this requirements workshops the right way? Did we get the outcome that we need to be able to continue in the project? And now something very clear too, if you have the feeling, no, we didn't, out of this requirements workshop, we didn't get the outcome that guarantees us that we can set up the system in the right way, it's you who has to decide to correct this in whatever the way is. Do a follow-up workshop, maybe it's just a call, maybe it's clarifying outstanding points by email, but it's then your responsibility as a project manager that you get the outcome that guarantees that the project can continue in the right way without turning left where you want to go straight and putting the whole project on risk. So you need to maintain the relationship with the key users or key people, key resources on the customer side. Keep them involved, keep them informed, communicate with them all the time in doing this. There too, it's a recommendation. Have a weekly status meeting in the office of the customer with everybody, with the main resources on the customer side, which are either the department managers or maybe a level under who is more involved in the daily operations. But keeping them together, and especially in the beginning of the project, you might sometimes have the feeling, why I'm doing it? There's not much coming up. There's no big issues now. We're just sitting here drinking some coffee. We are updating what we did last week and maybe what we are doing next week. But I guarantee you, the more the project goes on, the more discussion points definitely coming up in this weekly status meeting. So I mentioned already about project status reporting, very important. I come back to this in 2 weeks. Steering committees, very important. Get the management involved into the project as high as possible. manage your resources, making sure they are available, making sure they are doing their job. It's part of your jobs there as well. And making sure overall, as a definition, the project is successful in the end, inside of the budget and the timeline and the scope that was originally defined that we are having there. And this may be something too I use a lot to say this to project managers. The SOW, the statement of work that is signed by the customer, have to be your Bible during the project. You have to, every term that is in there, you need to know in your head. And this is what you have to deliver on. And everything what is outside of it, you have to escalate and not deliver on without agreement of the project sponsors, of the main decision makers in the project. So that's your job as a project manager. If you additional points there, you are the leader of the project, you are responsible for the strategy, and you are responsible too, if something is going out of hand, to escalate it, to go back to your manager, to go back to the project sponsor on the customer side and said, sorry guys, this project is going out of the line. We need to react and we need to do something to get it back on track. And we are getting this only if we do this and this. Or you all go back to and use us from an Acumatica perspective, come back and say, I have a problem here and I have a challenge and I don't get this back on track. Can you help me? What we are started offering now over the last couple of months is something we call a project audit. Sometimes you as a project manager can help you if you get us in for a session, 2 hours or whatever the amount of time is, and do an audit with you and your customer on where are we in the project, what are the next steps, and what are maybe things that are going wrong. It can help you often to correct things and get it back on the right way where you have the feeling you are hitting a roadblock, right? So we are happy to provide this, and we are not charging for it. So reach out for us if you think we can sometimes help to get a project that is running out of line back on track. We are happy to help with this and do this. Escalate this, like I said, if something goes wrong, to your management, and if you think we can help, escalate it to us, to me or my team, or to our partner account managers. We are happy to help and to support you there. So then we have the business process owners on the customer side. This is one of your main important person to contact with and to build a good relationship with. These are the people that have to help you in implementing the change. We discussed change before. People have to work different in the future, right? They can help you to make the accountant or the warehouse staff or the manufacturing staff believes they have to change their way of work and they won't in the future do the same anymore what they did the last 10 years. These are people you really need to focus on. You need to build a good relationship with, and you need to ask them to help you in implementing this change on the customer side, on the user level. Very, very important too. And then the functional subject matter expert, this is really the person who is doing the job every day. So they know how they work today. They know why they are doing things normally. So they know why they are walking from left to right and not from right to left if they are doing specific things. These are the people you have in your requirements workshop. These are the people you ask first to test functionality after you did the configuration. So this is the level down for your daily work and for the daily work of your consultants on the customer side with the customer there itself. Then we need technical resources, and we actually need technical resources on both sides. Very, very important. I saw this too here just recently in the project where the customer didn't have a technical at all, which means they didn't have anybody who, if in a report a column is a little bit too small, can make it a little bit wider, or if a new staff joins to set up the security for this new person, or even doing simple things like backups, which is very, very difficult too. So we always, but this is your management too, always have to motivate the customers to get at least one technical resource in place to help with all these kind of things and doing it there. And for sure, you need your technical resources in the project as well for all for the setup and configuration itself, if it is not SaaS, for report design, for dashboards, for customizations, and so on. And then we have the account manager, and this depends a little bit on the size of your organization you are working for. So normally it should be the person who sold the project. So I believe it's always very, very important that the salesperson stays involved in the project, and not on a daily basis, but at least, for example, joins the steering committee meetings. Helps there as well to say, remind back and say, you remember during the sales process, we identified these are the main targets. And this topic, for example, that we are discussing the last 3 hours now are not really part of it. So are we really on the right track to focus on the things we really wanted to achieve? So partner account manager can help you a lot from this perspective. On the other hand, whenever new requests are coming up that are not agreed in the new in the scope, original one, I highly recommend that not the project manager deals about the money that it costs to implement this change request. This should always be the account manager who is going back and said, so now we are discussing about the effort it takes, the mandates, the rates behind, if discount is to be negotiated and so on. This should be always done by the account manager, and the account manager or the salesperson should always stay some part of the project. I think this is very, very important too. So, and then we have the functional business consultant, your finance expert in your team, your distribution expert, your e-commerce consultant, or whatever, manufacturing, whatever this is, to really drive the work on the ground, right? This is the person who is doing the requirements workshop, and this is the person who is doing the configuration and doing the training and providing the documentation and so on. Again, very highly recommended. The project manager should not be a functional business consultant in the same project. It can be in a different project, but it's a very, very high risk to lose what you need as a project manager, stepping back, monitoring the project, thinking what we are doing at the moment. Do I achieve the outcome that I expected from this very specific meeting that we just had? It's very, very difficult for the person to judge who has to run the meeting in detail and discuss every single topic on the agenda point with the customer. So highly recommended, split the project manager from the functional business consultant. So this is an overview about the steering committee meeting that I mentioned before, and recommend to do it at least monthly in every project. This should include the project sponsor that I mentioned before. It should include the department heads, and it should include the project manager and your boss on the partner side. I am recommending not to include the consultants into this meeting. The reason is, my experience, when I include consultants, I'm often getting into very detailed discussions about a very specific topic, which is not the target of the steering committee. This should be high level to update the high level management, the people who sign the checks. This is where we are in the project. This is what we did so far. This is what is coming up in the next months until we have the next meeting. These are maybe the issues that we are facing at the moment, and these are the issues where we maybe need management decision, and discussing it on this level. The exception where I take a consultant in when I need exactly an approval like this, like that I say, there's a very, very specific requirement, and this costs, to implement this, we need 20 man days more. Then maybe I take a consultant in who can explain it more in detail what the background is, but only then. I wouldn't take all the consultants in every steering committee meeting. This is really a management meeting to have this there. So, and the responsibilities of these management committee, steering committee, is that they overall give the direction and guidance for the project. They determine what is the expected outcome, what are the objectives, the targets. They show the management commitment behind it. So the users know, my CEO is in the steering committee meeting, so I better do whatever is requested to make my CEO happy. So this helps a lot too, actually. They will give input on strategy, on maybe change in objectives, and helping with the resolution of major issues, like I said before. and only they can really support you to get additional resource if it is needed in the project itself. So that's the responsibility of the steering committee. Again, you as a project manager are responsible to do this steering committee meetings. I have slides for it. I have agendas for it. We can help you. We will discuss it, like I said, in the session in 2 weeks, in a little bit more in detail. What are the things you should discuss there? But you are responsible to do it. And from my perspective, to be honest, I'm not seeing it much in Asia that people are doing it. From my experience, it's very important to do it. Very, very important part to help you, to give you a much bigger chance to make your project successful there in the end. And all project team members, everybody, your side, customer side, who is involved in the project, need to understand what is the real scope. I don't need anybody coming after 3 months in the project and said, so why do we not implement payroll? So it has to be very clear for everybody in the project, this is what we are doing here, and anything else which is not in scope, we don't care at the moment. This is our total focus, what we are doing here. They need to know, on your side especially, what are the budget for the deliverables. So when you ask a technical to develop a report, tell him we budgeted 3 days for it. So he knows it. And he can come back to you and say, oh, this is much more complex than I thought. I cannot do it in 3 days. I need 4 days or 5 days, and you can escalate it back. So communicate this too with your resources. What's the plan? What's the budget? The budget doesn't mean here, in this case, US dollar or Thai baht or Philippine peso. It means the time allocated for the different tasks. So make sure that all the activities are done in schedule and are having the outcome that you expected, like we discussed it before already during the session today. And make sure that your team tells you when things are not going the right way. That they tell you I need a day more. That they tell you, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot do it until Friday because I have something else. I got something else from my boss. So you can go back actively to your project manager on the customer side, to the management on the customer side, go in advance and said, oh, I'm really, really sorry, but you won't get it on Friday, you get it on Tuesday next week, and you are not in trouble. If you don't tell them, and they come Monday to you and ask, so where is the deliverable, then you are in trouble. So speak with your team members that they tell you, and then you communicate this back to the customer side as well. So if there are any delays, issues, attack them. Go in there and fix it. Don't try to sit back and wait. In Germany, we had a prime minister before, we call it Chancellor, who was very, very famous for just sitting back and hoping the issues or problems are going away from alone. Unfortunately, they're not. They grow. That's the problem. So whenever something is coming up, go in there, try to analyze what happened, make a decision, what we do with it, and then communicate it out. And the quicker you solve the issues and the problems that are there. So every team member has to attend the status meetings. It's very, very important to keep involved, to keep informed what is going on. You need to know when people go on leave, right, in advance, so you can include this into your plan and into your project planning. You always, and especially your team members and you yourself, you always have to speak positive about the project. Even if you go back home in the evening, you think, oh, we are in a big mess here. You always need to try to be positive, to drive the things, because this is your job, to drive the project forward. Frustration is coming up for everybody, but in this case, issues, don't hide them, put them on the table. Negative image or negative feelings that you have towards the project, these ones you should hide. So that's a better way on doing it. And really work together as one team. As I mentioned this before, as the example with the football team, and coming back to the example, so we should win this game actually 8-0 to 0. If I can build one team out of the customer and the partner team together, playing against nobody on an empty goal, right? So this should be an easy thing. So it's very important working together. And you as a project manager, take ownership of issues. it's your responsibility, whatever is coming up, to fix it. Not to fix it by yourself, to make sure it is fixed, whoever the right resource is to do this. And communicate to your team members, if you have a problem, tell me. If you have a problem, tell me. I can help you to fix it. If you don't tell me, I don't know it, and I cannot fix it, and I cannot help you. So very important, having this kind of communication with your team members as well. So this is what I wanted to go through today. We still have a little, not much, but still have a little bit time. So if you have any questions, please put this in the Q&A box. You can send me an email too. You see my email address on the screen. And as I mentioned, the next session will be next week on Thursday, which is the 13th, if I remember this right, at 3 p.m. Bangkok time, 4 p.m. in the Singapore time zone. It will be provided by Natanai, and he will go in much more detail about how to start this all in doing a proper discovery, in understanding the business processes of the customer, the objectives of the customer, and creating this there. So there are no questions that we are having at the moment. So like I said, I recorded this session, and the system will send out automatically the recording to everybody who is on the call here today. And with this, and it's already now later on a Friday afternoon, with this, everybody have a good weekend. And I hope I meet you all again on the call next week when we continue with the discovery session. Thank you very much for joining today. Thank you.